Yeah, welcome back. It's still Business Morning here on Channels Television. Now we're trying to balance those macro and micro indices that we have seen. We have seen some impressive macroeconomic indices from Nigeria. We had a lot of applause, going to the way of the federal government because of the reforms. And yet, when we look at the micro, it doesn't seem so good. So let's try to find that missing link this morning with Dr. Yowakwa Apera. He's the former country director of Give Directly. Dr. Apera, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Nini. Thanks for having me.
So we've been hearing a lot of, appreciation. Nigeria's reforms is on the right path, especially from the international community. But the people in Nigeria seem not to agree with that because of the microeconomic indices. What do you think is missing connecting these macro and micro indices?
I think the federal government, under the leadership of His Excellency Tinubu, is doing their best in economic reforms, and we're beginning to see those results. Our macroeconomic indices are going in the right direction. I think it's also time to turn his attention fully to our socioeconomic reforms as well and try to push that needle up so that it then creates the balance on the macro and the micro to see real growth. Like you noted, why our GDP is improved, things are going the right direction. Our poverty figures are only on the rise. So we look at poverty figures from 2021 at 80 million Nigerians. It's close to about 150 million Nigerians now when you do the maths. And when you look at our unemployment rate is increased. Our inflation rate, even though you could argue that it's a bit stable at 22% and above, it's still not yet there. So I think the missing link now is to turn attention to some of these socioeconomic reforms to then drive a holistic development agenda that will see Nigeria not only prosper, but be a huge window of opportunities for all Nigerians.
Because, even World Bank has placed the number of the poor in the rural area alone at 75%, and food prices are increasing, and, some other indices. Yes, as you've noted, we've seen a stability in the price, in the value of the naira. But the people are still waiting, for this to come down. Perhaps this should take us back to what the World Bank and IMF had said, that before these reforms, there's supposed to be some social safety nets created. Would you say it's too late for those nets to come on now?
And that's why I said it's time to also shift attention to socioeconomic reforms. What should that look like? You are right. The World Bank puts about 75% of the total population, 75% of the rural population under poverty line. That translates to about 117 million people. If you're looking at our total population estimate 2025 for about 237 million, that's a huge number. And then that same stat tells you that about 41% of those in urban areas are also below the poverty line. That translates to around 24 million. Put the maths together, it's about 137 out of 237 million people in Nigeria. So the numbers are huge. Now, there are some reforms on one hand that have strengthened our macroeconomic indicators, but those reforms also needs to be accompanied with some some safety nets that provide a cushion for the poor and vulnerable to give them access, right? So when you remove oil subsidy, the answer is not necessarily palliative. The answer is to look at innovative ways that take advantage of the economic crisis to stimulate economic growth. So when you look at introducing maybe cash transfers, introducing in a meaningful way well-targeted cash transfer programs. You look at introducing food stamps, for instance, or you look at creatively stimulating growth through some sectors. You look at improving some of the infrastructure that then pave way for microeconomic growth. That will provide the balance. So yes, we removed the oil subsidy. It's a brilliant thing to have done. We've been arguing and we've been advocating for it forever. Now it's finally here. But we need to then quickly bring up measures that cushion the impact of those, of the removal of the oil subsidy. Remember, we're just coming out of COVID crisis and trying to recover from COVID economic crisis. Then the oil subsidy came in to then add on to that. So the federal government needs to now turn its attention. The last time I was with you, I was advocating for the Mr. President to declare a state of emergency on poverty. And the question was that we have declared loads and loads of emergencies. What good has come out of it, right? But we think that if we are very purposeful on economic reforms and we have a driver, someone or an agency or a ministry with the convening power and the requisite authority to drive it, we will see some effect, right? In the past administration, and this is not comparing administrations in any way, the social investment programs were introduced under the office of the vice president. Now, it was someone who does not only have the capacity, it was someone who had the vision. It was also someone who had the convening power and had the requisite authority backing the responsibility that he was given to drive. So he took it, he owned it, he drove it. He was the face of it, right? Now, in this administration, you want to do that. Mr. President needs to identify such a person. He has declared Nigeria First policy, which is in entirety is the way to go. It's the best thing that might even happen. It might just be the face of this administration. But who is driving Nigeria First agenda? Who has the convening power and the capacity to drive that, to own that as a vision? Because it translates into all sectors of our economy, right? So Nigeria First means, for instance, giving confidence to a shoemaker in Aba, for instance, that is producing leather shoes, and rather than put a Louis Vuitton on it, it puts made in Aba. That's of quality that everybody can use. It translates to maybe looking at our energy sector that is very, very poor at the moment. I mean, 90 million Nigerians are without steady power supply or even any means of power supply, right? And energy drives economy. So if you say, okay, let's be deliberate and solarize our communities, for instance, we have a decaying health sector. Our primary health cares are completely not there, adding to the chaos and the problem. Solarize our public primary health care centers all over the country. Build economies around that alone, right? Mr. President went to Benue State and announced that let's use the tragedy of the Yelwata to turn the economic fortunes of Yelwata, for instance, now translating aid to economic fortune and building economies around the aid for Yelwata. Brilliant idea. Who is owning that? Who is driving that? So we need to identify those with that level of capacity to not only own some of these initiatives, but drive it purposefully for the overall development of our country.
Yeah, Dr. Apera, and you've said a whole lot of things there, from the ideas of how to stimulate the economy and those social net ideas. And I think the biggest question you've asked there is who is driving it? We know what has happened with the ministry that is supposed to take care of the social intervention programs. and then we haven't really seen a conclusion to it. There was investigation and all of that. And so anybody who comes on board now is looked at with suspicion, whether the person is performing or not. How do you suggest that the government can get someone who can drive these programs you've suggested and also win the trust of Nigerians, because that's totally gone in that area, so that we can have a social intervention programs that are well driven and honestly driven?
I think Mr. President has a very brilliant person in the helm of affairs of the humanitarian ministry. Prof is really an intelligent person that when you engage with him, you know that he has the capacity, he has the vision. But the question is, does he has the requisite convening power? Because driving poverty alleviation is multi-sectorial. How much power does he have to pull Ministry of Agriculture to translate what Ministry of Agriculture is doing to speak to the socio-economic reforms agenda of Mr. President that sits with him, perhaps? What convening power does he have to translate education into that? Or is it running at in parallel lines or in competition where they're not speaking to each other? So that needs to happen. You need to have that level of power. Before, the vice president was, or the president himself, giving that power, but pulling the team together. Now, if you look at the social investment programs as it is now, it needs a complete overhaul, complete rebranding. We look at it with suspicion, we look at it with suspicion, yeah, that's the right word. And you're right. So we need to move away from social investment. Just don't call it social investment. We need to move towards social protection and strengthen our social protection floors, strengthen our targeting system, rely on accurate data, build on evidence to plan and to design programs that speaks to development. We need to unlock our small enterprises by providing infrastructure that helps growth, by providing training, startups that supports small businesses to grow. The tax reform, great idea, giving tax holidays or no tax at all for those businesses that earn below a certain amount of money. And a lot of small businesses fall into this category, which is great. But tax reforms alone cannot do it for them when they don't have the requisite infrastructure to reduce cost further, like power. So start by also building community hubs where, or community warehouses with power that helps small businesses own small places within there to do their various trade, make clothes, design clothes. You spoke to an interior decorator here. There are loads of young folks out there with those ideas and with those initiatives. Create hubs that allow them turn their ideas into meaningful products, right? So it's going to be a holistic future. Now, the Minister of Finance is the face of economic reforms. The central bank governor, both are working hard. The head of FIRS, three of them are economic reform faces who are driving that and driving that agenda. Mr. President needs to then get another strong face to drive the socio-economic reform side of things, build on strong social protection floors that speaks to development, to support these macroeconomic reforms, that indicators that are on the rise, to also have that microeconomic reform growth balance, so that we'll have a holistic development, right? So it will take a bit of time for us to begin to have that impact of those reforms on the downside if we are not setting in place the necessary structure that allows the lower level of the poverty pyramid to also grow and move out of poverty. So yes, strong social safety nets work. Building strong social protection floors is the ideal. This is what a lot of countries are falling back to. So we need to build a very strong social reforms agenda. We need to have a strong and well-capacitated institution to drive that for Mr. President.
So, Dr. Apera, you also talked about stimulating growth. We've seen President Trump being very intentional about that. His big, beautiful bill is cutting off taxes, and that's supposed to, stimulate more economic productivity. In the case of Nigeria, when we talk about stimulating growth, I wonder where you think we can tackle it from. Because, of course, we have the fiscal issues, we have the security issues. Talking about interest rates, we are forced to increase interest rates because we're trying to fight inflation. So when you talk about stimulating growth in a scenario, the Nigerian scenario, where do you see it coming out from?
Well, there are a variety of issues, right? Tied to first around our infrastructure deficit. America will be successful because they will not have those minute level challenges. So we need to also look at trying to correct those infrastructural deficits. We really need to work hard on correcting the imbalance of our energy situation. I mean, over 90 million Nigerians without power. It's a huge problem. We need to correct access road where our products come in. Yes, we've declared emergency in food security, but the removal of oil subsidy has shot the transportation cost up, mounting pressure on farmers. Insecurity has pushed the farmers in the rural areas to IDP camps. I mean, Benue with a population of 7 million, for instance, close to 5 million or close to 4 million are in IDP camps. Some have been there for over 15 years. Some of them have been born in IDP camps of over 15 years, have not seen the four walls of a classroom. They are not educated. These IDP camps have not provided infrastructure for education, right? And so that will add to our productivity problem. This will further add to the insecurity challenges. Because a young man at that level without hope, without any access, we turn to what is available, becoming ready guns for bandits, for kidnappers, and for crime, which then further pushes forward our insecurity challenges. And we must be deliberate about insecurity. We need to put our foot on the ground and solve this problem completely. And this has also to do with a lot of the other issues that we talked about improving our education, improving our primary healthcare, our healthcare structure, improving our infrastructure deficit, good roads, power, etc., good water, to give, lift a standard of living in the rural areas. The statistics are right. 75% of those who dwell in the rural areas are poor. Out of our total population of 237 million, 75% are in the rural areas. Now, when you do the math, that will be around 130 something or close to 178 million people in the rural areas. Now, 75% of them are poor. That translates to about 117 million Nigerians who are in the rural areas, who are poor, who do not have access to education, or access to good water, or access to energy, or access to healthcare. They are the people who depend on food supply. Half of that population, especially in the north, are in IDP camps, pushed by insecurity. That further lowers the numbers of capable hands and available hands in agriculture. Now, even the few that are in agriculture, they are burdened by high cost of fertilizer, herbicides, etc. And it's because we also remove oil subsidy that the prices of production has increased. We are more into imports. When you import and the exchange rate, even though a bit stable, you will argue, and coming down to 1,500, it's still not there yet. I mean, any product you bring, even at $1 or $10 worth of herbicide, you translate to naira, it's about 15,000 naira. Where will a poor farmer who's in the rural area without this access afford that to improve yields? So we were still basically on the basic agricultural produce. And also remember, because of the deficit of infrastructure, he doesn't even have the road to move these products into the markets where he have better markets. Now, what efforts are we making, even the little that we are producing, to find the right markets for it? Like opening markets in even the South, in the West African region. Trade between West African countries, it's poor. What efforts are we making to unlock those to improve our economy? So there's still a lot to do. I mean, if we want to start to talk about it, we'll talk on end. If we want to unpack it sector by sector, we will also have a lot to say and a lot of time to spend on it. But overall, we need Mr. President to also turn his attention to socio-economic reforms and try to strengthen that. We need someone to drive his Nigeria First agenda with a very strong, who has the capacity, has the vision, owns it, and have the authority to drive that. We need to see that. And so when you bring the socio-economic reforms, the economic reforms that are going on, you marry it, and then you will begin to see holistic growth in our country.
So, Dr. Apera, I'm almost sure that these ideas are not new. You know, these are ideas that people have discussed and all of that. Nigeria First is not the first time we're discussing Nigeria First. But do you see intentionality in the government of the day to actually follow through after the speeches? I mean, you yourself said it. We've had a lot of state of emergency declared on food security and all of that. Do you see intentionality in actually bringing these things to come to pass?
I mean, we've seen it in the macroeconomic growth, so you won't argue that there's no intentionality by the current administration, right? I mean, the bold move of removing oil subsidy, I mean, it takes a lot to do that. We've been trying to do that like almost forever. We tried that even during Jonathan's time, where Ngozi Konjo-Iweala made that attempt, but it was just partial removal. And the subsequent administration has also been tried to do that. So the intentionality is there. The guts to do that is also there. Mr. President has demonstrated that through the removal of oil subsidy. He now begins to become intentional about the poverty question in Nigeria. He needs to be very intentional about the security question and resolving it. But he needs to have folks that buy this vision, own this vision, and drive it. And now we're not arguing that he does not have lieutenants, he does, right? But we need to begin to see more visible and concrete efforts and not just talk. Not just, we're going to, without adapting operation, catch and kill, operation see and end, whatever that is from our security agencies. They must show real intention of ending the insecurity crisis in this country and not just talk. We need to begin to see very strong moves from the poverty alleviation angle as well in terms of programs. We need to be more visible with even the social investment programs that are now a bit dormant. We need to see clarity in that. We need to see more visible efforts from the food security angle that would declare the emergency. Or I mean, what is happening within that angle? Are we just going to buy tractors? What are we doing? And it has to be holistic. So I would say Mr. President has a good intention. He has the guts to do it. He has shown us. He needs to move the needle more to other sectors, particularly on the social side, to see that also sees some significant growth, so that we will feel the impact of that and have holistic growth in our country.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Yoakwa Apera, former country director of Give Directly. Thank you so much for your time and your views on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate you.